Cheers.
Cheers.
Love you guys. Love you. Second dinner forever.
Fuck yeah.
Ron, you want to kick us off?
Yeah. So my name is Ryan Lindbilt, and I met first I met Noah in 2013 playing jazz. We were playing jazz, and we had a jazz group together, and then
Shout out 98 Project.
the 98 Project, yeah, which was great. And then I met Danny about 3 years later because Noah's like, "Hey, do you know this guy Danny Silverstein?" I was like, "No, I don't." He was like, "Okay, cool, we're gonna play horns for his band," and so then we played "Horns for You"
That's true.
at Cafe 939
And the BPC
AQ Performance Center.
and the Bird Performance.
That's
Center.
true.
We just played one song with the BPC.
Uh-huh.
Really, that was a one song deal.
Uh-huh.
And then, yeah, and shortly, and that was like my last year, or our last year at Berkeley, and then you met my parents on graduation night. And I didn't know you that well at that point, but you were hammered,
Yeah.
and you like gave my parents this whole rant about like how awesome you, and they were like, "Oh yeah, we met your friend Danny. He was going on and on about you." I'm like, "Oh yeah, I barely know that guy. That's awesome." Yeah. So
Yeah. Yeah. All right. I'm Noah Conrad. I met. Well, how much of the story should I repeat? I guess because this is sort of
Ours,
the same.
yeah, ours, same.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I met Ryan Lindbilt playing jazz music,
That's true.
which we were both pretty way too deep into at the time.
Pretty sick of that.
We were pretty fucking sick at it. Yeah. And then we played a lot of jazz. And then I actually don't even remember how I met you.
I can tell you exactly how I went.
Oh, okay.
My name's Danny, by the way. I'm Danny. Hi, guys.
My first interaction just wasn't that memorable for
I
me.
met Noah Conrad outside of, we were all in college, obviously, we'd established that, but you were blackout drunk outside of your apartment. And I was with my friend Terrell, and your guys' I hadn't really witnessed this dynamic, but it was a very, like, you guys had this kind of, like, beat each other up, like, boys, like, dynamic.
Yeah.
And I was not familiar with this dynamic. So me and Terrell are walking down the street, and you're there, and you guys just started getting, like, physical with each other. And I was like, whoa, commotion, like, what's going on right now? You know, I have my guard up. I was like, who is this fratty guy that I'm meeting?
Yeah.
Little did I know you have the musical touch of an angel, and you're just a sensitive boy. So that's how I met Noah. And then Ryan.
Shocking.
Ryan, I initially met in, I believe I was in your basement apartment that you shared with our friend Jonas Summerfield.
Yes.
And I
Or at his place.
maybe it was
Or
your place.
mine.
I feel like I came to your place and we played music, and Ryan was in my band. And then I would say, what I did was I sort of like, you know how like dogs like pee on like fire hydrants or whatever. I feel like I like metaphorically peed on both of you.
You marked
in that
it.
moment.
Yeah,
I clocked you guys, and I said you and you, yes,
Yeah.
cool, and yeah, I would say that was the inception of our friendship.
That's where it started.
And then we all came to LA at the same time, and I just forced both of you to work with me all the time.
Yeah.
I would say the inception of this album was pretty untraditional. Non-traditional. I would say it was pretty anti-album.
I feel like I remember the moment when it was like, this is coming out.
Right.
I think it was me and Ryan and Pedro sitting at Laurel Tavern.
Yeah.
Being like, Danny should make an album. He shouldn't do another EP. Like, it sounds cohesive. And then I think we all texted you at the same time being like,
You need to make knowledge.
it needs to be an album.
Yeah. I would say the beginning though, where we started.
Yeah. For at least this batch.
For this batch of music,
Yeah.
was I wrote a song called Problem Solver
Yeah.
with our friend Brian Brundage. And I think the pivotal moment for this whole entire year of music that we made was Ryan went to a fucking flea market and bought a banjo.
Right. I remember I was
Yes.
there.
Yeah, you were.
And it's quality banjo,
High quality.
high quality banjo. And a banjo was purchased
For like 125.
for $125, and that was brought back into your studio, and I think that changed the trajectory of everything.
The kind of set, the like shitty 4-string banjo that neither of us know how to play.
Neither of us know
we
how to
just
play.
like figure it out kind of, and like also usually recording it with like a cheap microphone too. The whole thing kind of set the tone of like, oh, I feel like in so many ways we took the first EP like too seriously in terms of like the production and like how do we make sure this is cool?
Yes.
And I think we kind of said fuck that. And I think the banjo kind of set the tone of that because it was just inherently like this thing is like you
Not-
it's not
not-
very functional.
It's not a serious instrument.
No,
Right.
it's not. Even though it's actually, even it does sound
I
very
feel like it's
beautiful,
like
but-
retroactively become a more serious instrument.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the 2 years since that.
Yeah, but at the time,
But at the time, it was
like
not
banjo
serious.
stock was not doing it.
No, yeah. I think the fact that it was like a junky banjo too. It's
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
60s Japanese knockoff one.
Yeah.
That's
So
like,
I think Problem Solver is created. I think other songs are being written, like Drink on Accutane, maybe. Maybe what other song is being written? Maybe like Mozart is also being written.
Right.
Well, you hadn't written that a little while before.
Yeah,
right?
and then I'm taking it to Ryan. I'm taking it to Noah. We're like, we're cooking in the kitchen,
Yeah.
shall I say? And then I feel like yes, the pivotal moment was I don't really know what I was doing. I was just kind of shooting in the dark, putting out singles, and then you, Pedro, and Ryan all texted me at the same time one night while I was like in bed and said like, "You're being a kind of like a little baby. Just put out a fucking album."
Yeah, because there was no barrier for you. You know, you were independent. There was no reason that you couldn't do it by there were no rules in play, and it was like, and I think the thing that I was saying to you too was like EPs are cool and stuff. Like there's some but like how often are you throwing on an EP? Like we think of our favorite albums. Like here's my favorite EP. Like one. Like
You just can't argue with that, man.
Yeah, it's just how often are you throwing on an EP?
You
Right?
just
Like,
really can't argue with that.
now EPs serve their place, But
Yeah.
in this case, we also already have like 7 songs, so it was like most of the work's done.
The last song on the album, it's called the Chinchilla Story.
Chinchilla Story.
Right? As referenced in Ryan's hat.
Yes.
Which is a story told many a time in Danny and I's presence.
Yes.
You were very familiar with the work.
Ryan had, in any new interaction we witnessed,
Right.
where a new member was entering our friend group,
Right. There
the
was,
Chinchilla Story would be told by Ryan.
and also we were both part of the inception of the story.
Of course, we were part
So-
of it. Yes.
So it made the score really.
do you remember when we decided to do that? By the way,
Yeah, I feel like it was like we tried to put a clip of it that you recorded into like the end of Mozart.
I had secretly recorded.
Yeah, yeah.
So
You
what
like
happened
you
was-
like sent me a video of Ryan telling it as a
He
bit.
was telling our friend Devin Gilfillian the story.
Yeah, yeah.
And I secretly recorded Ryan.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
texted
yeah.
it to you, and I said Chinchilla Story again.
Yep,
And then we put it at the end of Mozart.
Yep.
Just on a whim to be like, that would be hilarious if we put it there.
yeah, yeah.
Because I think what happened is you had called me. You were like, "Hey, could you really quickly come by and record the story?" And I was like, "No."
Yeah,
I'm
it was
not
an
gonna do
initial-
that.
it was initially
I really
no.
pushed against
Oh,
it 'cause
why?
I felt bad. I was like, because of the story, I was like, I don't know. I just felt like insecure about it for some reason. But then you were like, "No, okay, we're gonna do this proper. We're gonna like record you telling the story to someone, and then we're gonna score it." So yeah, me coming over in your living room,
Yep.
recording it, telling
Telling
the story.
it to your ex-girlfriend.
Yes, telling to
Your
my
now
ex-girlfriend. Yes.
and you listening me tell the story while you were in the studio recording it. So I was very aware that I was being recorded.
Yeah,
Like,
you had an audience that
Yeah.
had not heard it before. Also,
Yeah,
to
that was
support.
actually really crucial.
Yeah.
I'd also like to add in a way that only Ryan could tell the story.
Yes.
It's a very singular voice.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So it only could be told by you.
But the moment of making of the music.
Yeah, yeah. The,
What was
sc-
that
the
like
day
for
that
you,
we
Sam?
scored it was pretty. I would say
That was a magical day.
that was a great time.
Yeah.
It was a bit of a flow state, you would say.
Yeah,
I would
yeah.
say we were tapped in
Yeah.
for the most part.
Once we locked into the big car moment.
That was the ticker, wasn't it? There's a moment in
Yeah.
that song where you
Yeah.
talk about how I have a big car.
Yeah.
And we put just a moog and we just went on that downbeat. And I thought what was really interesting about this kind of homework assignment, because I think it did kind of feel like a fun homework
Yeah,
assignment,
yeah,
was it wasn't on the grid, so we were kind of like
Right.
chopping your story up, putting like slowing down at certain points, putting emphasis like in certain parts. And I thought that was like a really interesting way to approach making music. It almost felt like we were like working on like a movie or something.
yeah.
Like,
Right, yeah, yeah. It's like
I guess that's what like podcast people like,
Right.
like scores.
Yeah,
do,
yeah.
I guess, yeah.
Was that your favorite one to make?
No, I'll go last. Ryan, what was your favorite? To make?
I'm looking back on it. I feel like my favorite was probably Undercover Cops, actually.
Wow.
I think because like that song is such like a warm hug of a song, and I feel like it also came together probably the easiest of any of the songs.
Yeah.
Well, for some of them came together easier, but that was like they came together in a very relatively easy, satisfying way. Not that songs have to come together in an easy way, of course, like,
Totally.
in order to be great, but it was like There was like we just kept like there were very few things that we like tried and failed. It was all it just felt like, oh yeah, we just tried something and it worked and it sounded sick, and then it'd be like, hell yeah,
Yeah.
and it just like kind of like just kept. Also, I just loved how we committed to just using. We didn't use like the nice tube mic for any of the instruments.
What mics do we use, Ryan?
We used an SM57, Shure F57 for almost all the instruments except the drums. Also had one Coles overhead mic,
Correct.
so there were no tube mics used.
Also, shout out to Charlie Brand,
Huge shout out to Charlie.
who I wrote that song with.
Yeah, and then he also joined us for a day to help refine.
What was the most
production.
notable instrument he played on that?
Oh, he scratched his head as a shaker.
Tell me about that story.
Oh yeah, we needed like a shaker in the second verse or something, and so we were like trying like a shaker. It was all too much, and we tried stuff. And then he was like, I think he was really just scratching his head, and I was like, wait, what if I just like? And at first it was like kind of gross, you know, but then like in context it was like actually it's just kind of like a subtle shaker.
Is that what's in the song?
It's in
I
the
didn't.
song. It's in
I
one
never
of
noticed.
this, and you
honestly.
mixed it all
Yeah, I
together.
know. Yeah, I was definitely checking out that
Yeah,
figure.
and Noah, you mixed that song.
Yeah,
Yeah,
which
it was
also
crucial.
maybe my favorite song on the album. I'm just glad to be a part of it. honestly.
Yeah, and played a guitar solo.
Tell the story of the guitar solo, though.
Oh yeah, you, me, Perrin.
No, it wasn't.
You didn't try it?
You guys didn't let me play on it.
All right,
No,
no, because you're the best guitar player. Yeah, so it was us two and our friend Para
Mm-hmm.
that all tried passes the guitar solo, and then eventually what you had an idea of what the guitar solo should be, and then
Yeah.
then you played it. So the
Yeah.
rare
I think I
engineer
just-
guitar
Yeah,
solo.
yeah.
We
We
took
took
bits
like
and
flops of
Four.
everybody.
Yeah. There's like a 4 takes together. I think playing.
Yeah.
each playing kind of the same thing.
Yeah. not-
Yeah, more or less the same thing.
Yes.
But yeah, that one I think that was my favorite.
That was a
to make.
fun one.
Yeah, there were some that were arguably more like satisfying once we like cracked it,
Yeah.
but like that one just was such a chill, easy, enjoyable process.
Well, I was going to say my answer is the opposite of that, which is drank on Accutane. Some people like the easy breezy, and I can appreciate the easy breezy.
Yeah.
But I like fighting for everything. I like. It was a bit sadistic, honestly, that whole process.
It was over
Uh,
2 years.
It was a 2-year process.
Wow.
Where initially we had written. What's cool though is the song was always there, and all right, started with Ryan, and then I brought Grant Averill in,
Right.
and we finished.
helped you crack
We
it down.
cracked the writing of it, and initially we were thinking about the band, the drums. I don't know if you know the drums.
I don't know if I do actually.
They're kind of this like beach surf band.
It's like beach surf. It's like if Joy Division went surfing.
If Joy Division went surfing.
Sick.
They have a song called "Let's Go Surfing." Actually,
Phenomenal song. Initially, we had kind of like, I think a lot of the times, what's awesome about when we start songs and where they finish is like we have this initial concept, and oftentimes we try to fit it in so hard,
yeah,
and then comes like a Noah Conrad or another aha moment where it's like, it's almost just like you just adjust the view by like a couple degrees, and then it all makes sense. So I think for this one, I think it was just us over time, just chipping away at it, me hating the song, being like, it's never going to see the light of day.
yeah.
And I'm really proud of the fact that we stuck it out. Because that takes grit, and that takes, like, I think that's, like, what being a grown-up is all about. It was a good grown-up lesson for me.
Absolutely, and I feel like also that one too was really crucial because we had to throw out a lot of convention to get it to feel right. Because like I think when we had started doing it, like everything was like more traditional, like what instrument was doing what, and then over time we were like, we kind of had to throw out the playbook.
Yeah.
And there's so many like random sounds in there that like aren't instruments.
And shout out to our boy Gabe Gladstein
Oh, for taking a
Dude.
shredding
for
vocal.
Yeah.
ripping
Or
a
else
vibe.
what?
And Ryan having the fucking genius idea of saying we're gonna put as much distortion as we can put
On this
a
violin
solo
and just make it ballistic.
and make
Yeah.
it ballistic. That was a beautiful moment. But I would say that not from like the actual recording process, but I think the journey of the song is my favorite one that we made.
Yeah, that was really
Yeah.
special work.
So the inception was I was thinking about food a lot, I guess, at the time, as I often do. But my beautiful wife Leia, while I was workshopping different names, just said every single night you get high after dinner and then eat a bowl of cereal for second dinner. You should just call it second dinner. And I think that really resonated on a personal level. There was also another beat title called "Don't Fill Up on Bread,"
Just turned into
which then turned into the intro track.
Right.
And I would say my favorite second dinner is a bowl of cereal.
Life cinnamon.
Life cinnamon,
specific.
Life cinnamon to be specific.
Yeah.
You know me so well.
Yeah.
No, what's your favorite second dinner?
I would say almost certainly a cheesy gordita crunch and usually about half of a beefy 5-layer burrito from Taco Bell.
Look at you go.
Yeah.
That's
I try not to eat the whole beefy 5-layer because it's a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's pretty sick.
Yeah. No, it's good.
I'd also like to say before I flip this to Ryan that
Yeah.
he's gonna say I would never eat. Like
Right. No. He doesn't believe in
he
second
doesn't
dinner.
believe.
That's
Ryan,
not true.
Ryan does not believe in second dinner.
Ryan eats enough at
not
first
during
dinner.
bulking season. Come on, that's still on the table.
Ryan is the health nut. Baby,
Yeah.
out of all of us.
But I also argue to eat the most out of it.
Yeah. What's your favorite? Okay, let's.
Second dinner? Well,
Yeah.
assuming dinner has already been very huge, and
Yeah.
usually second dinner.
Massive steak.
It's massive.
Yeah, the second year's I feel like usually peanut butter on toast, an unsweetened peanut butter
Of course.
on like
a
the
natural peanut butter.
Yeah, the one that's like with Justin's, like
Yes.
the good shit from Whole Foods.
Yes.
And maybe some dates thrown in there too. Maybe some black tea to go along with it. I don't know.
Yes.
It's very like for me that's like a huge indulgence. For most people, that's like lacking any joy whatsoever. But I actually really enjoy it. So
How about finding joy in the simple things?
yeah, it's the unsweetened peanut butter that's like just peanuts on like nice bread. It's
Yes.
like it just fucking slaps.
I'll take a stab at that. So I wrote that song with Brian Brundage, and I remember the moment I had the idea for that song. I had been on FaceTime with our dear friend Sasha Alex Sloan, and we had been talking about this concept. It was me and Leia, my wife, and her and Henry, your husband. We had been talking about this idea of like, sometimes it's like me and Sasha oftentimes on the phone will just be like, I'm sorry, I'm just going on, I'm spending, and like our thing is like, go for it, let it out. We're talking about this concept of like sometimes you don't actually want somebody to say anything, you just want kind of like a clear runway to go with whatever gripe you're facing, whatever problem you're dealing with. And I wrote down, I think, like, shutting the fuck up and listening, I think was like my initial spark for that idea. And then I wrote it with Brian. In many ways, that was a kind of a turn for me in my songwriting style because it was less about, I don't know, like a big, heavy, emotional situation where I felt like it had to be weighted versus like just making a simple point and letting it breathe. And via obviously the lens of being a personal experience. And I feel like maybe that resonates with people because it's not such a big, it's a small statement, but it lands in a way where it's like, oh, I haven't really thought about it like that. Because it was an aha moment for me, and maybe listening to that song can be an aha moment for, I've got many DMs where people say this has really helped my relationship. I haven't thought about that before. That being said, it streamed decently.
Yeah.
But then we did the Live from Mom's Office version, and I think, shout out to Mimi, who is my creative director, for having the foresight to do that song. Shout out to Theo, my director, for setting up that shot. And I think that video kind of working also helped the song have a little bit of legs.
Absolutely. It communicated.
It communicated in a nice, earnest way.
Yeah. Very endearing.
Yeah.
And genuine.
Yeah.
But also still kind of lighthearted.
Yeah. And hopefully it's not too serious.
No, it's
I think
fun,
I think the point you made about the first project being a little too serious and taking itself too seriously.
Yeah.
I think Problem Solver maybe was like the initial way to like unlocking that.
Yeah, absolutely. Both sonically and songwriting wise.
Yeah, 100%.
Like there are times where, like recently, like I'll be like hanging with Elsa, and she'll be like going on about something she's having a really bad time about, and I'm like, I'm gonna be someone who listens and not trying to fix it, I'm like, because I'm like at this moment that's actually not helpful to be like, well, it's okay because blah blah blah. It's like, no, like this is how you feel, like, and I'm here for you, as a support, as opposed to like, well, actually we should fix everything right now.
Mm-hmm.
Like, no, it's not the time for that, So I actually do think about it a lot.
I'm happy to be a part of your relationship.
It's a
That's how I'm taking it. It's Ryan and Elsa, if I can say her name.
You can say her.
And me.
And you, yeah.
And Slim.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So thank you.
Noah.
No.
I've never been solving a lot of problems, I would say.
Yeah. I would say you're maybe
Usually creating the problems.
right. You're usually the person maybe someone is talking about to their boyfriend.
Exactly. It's
Or
more
to the
of the
person.
yeah.
Yeah.
Just a different character in the story.
Still in the play.
Still,
though.
you know,
Yeah,
still
Part of
yeah.
the deal. Yeah,
Part of
plot.
it. Yeah.
We started Celebrity Lookalikes. I think you just had that little guitar riff.
I made, you know when you're on the bottom tab of your laptop and you're trying to open Safari, but you accidentally click like Microsoft Word, and you're like, fuck, because you hadn't opened it in like 5 or 6 years, and it's like loading. So I had done that, but with the music program Logic. I hadn't opened Logic for years. This is my old laptop.
Oh, fuck.
And I opened Logic, and it's like fucking spinning wheel of death, everything that could go wrong, and I'm just sitting there taking it. And finally Logic opens, and I thought, okay, like I might as well just like take a crack. So I made the initial beat for Celebrity Lookalike,
Hell yeah.
which I have somewhere, which was just the da-da-da-da-da with the power chords and all that shit.
Yeah.
And I brought that to Ryan, and then we started writing that song, and we got up to a second chorus, and then I really remember a moment where we were like, put it down, let's let it chill for a second.
We wrote up to the second chorus on day one, I think.
Day one?
Yeah.
And we said, let's put it down, and then I think we both agreed that this was a good Noah song.
Yes, because of the like harmony of it, and
Yes.
like just the harmony of it, like the concept, like musically where it needed to go. We were like, we need to like, yeah.
Yeah.
We need an expansion pack.
Oftentimes when I'm doing music, making music, I'm thinking about Noah, and in the sense of like,
Yeah.
how does it? Well, like Snow's very musical in a certain. He has a very specific flavor.
Yes.
And it felt like this had a Noah Conrad flavored dish.
I appreciate it because I heard it and I was like, fuck yeah, I love this song.
Yeah.
I was like, this is great. I would love to take more credit than I deserve for
Yeah.
this.
So we brought it into Noah Conrad, and we wrote a bridge together.
Yep.
Crucial.
Which, by the way, maybe one of my favorite bridges.
That was a fun one to write.
Yeah.
I thought that was like a very mature bridge in the sense where we didn't just word vomit and let things. I think
it's like 3 lines.
It's
isn't it?
3 lines, and the premiere lyric is looking at you, looking at me, over and over again.
Oh, what? Well,
Oh, maybe we had come up with that.
we had come up with that because
Yeah.
we were like, that was going to be a vamp section.
Right.
But then
Yeah.
We added the part before that.
Yeah,
all the paint, or all the grapes in Tuscany.
Yeah, all the grapes in Tuscany, all the paint in the Sistine don't really matter much to me.
Yeah, yeah.
And I thought that was a pretty.
I feel like we spent a solid hour.
Yeah, that was- yeah,
That was like, what is
which
it going to be?
which to me is like the sign of like fuck yeah, because it
Yeah.
was simple, but it was also well crafted.
And said what we needed to say.
And then we spent, I think, a couple days here and there. I love how we made this record because
Yeah.
it wasn't like 3 weeks of let's make the album. It was very much so micro doses of production.
Yeah.
And I think over time we just chipped away at it slowly but surely. And then me and Noah, I think you were in London. Me and Noah finished it over the course of like maybe like a week or two.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You said to me the bounce.
Yeah, we had started, and then we kind of went into finishing it, which was fun.
Yeah. One of my favorite things about that song actually is the lyric in the chorus where you're like Sorrento Beach.
Sorrento. Oh, this is a good
Sorrento.
tidbit. This is a good
Yeah,
tidbit.
yeah.
Good tidbit.
Yeah.
And
tell the story.
after the first time we worked on this song, I went out to dinner with Kelly and Pedro, and I played them the bounce in the car, and me included, all of us thought you were saying some rando beach, and we had a whole conversation about how sick that lyric is. And then the next time we worked on it, you were like, I like soloed the vocal, and I was like, oh, it's like he's not even saying that, and then we changed it in the last chorus. Like,
That's right.
The last chorus you actually
as a nod to
do
you
say
two guys.
some rando beach.
Sorrento, a beautiful beach.
A beautiful beach. It's a great beach. Yeah.
Yeah.
Some random beach does kind of send it home though.
It does.
Yeah.
That's kind of the tie, the bow tie and all of it. But
Yeah.
that was a really fun one. I'd also like to maybe pinpoint Personal Jinx,
Yeah.
which was an interesting story.
Yes.
That was a song that me and Ryan had initially started.
But like early in the process.
Early in the process, which I was
You had
so
no interest in this.
I was so sold on it dying. I
read
was like, I said this song stinker,
Yeah.
And I
and
was like, I think there's something here.
and Noah and Ryan both thought there's something here.
But you were like, I know what it needs to change.
Well, yeah, I was like, yeah, because it went some weird other thing after the verse, and I was like,
Yeah.
it's not, that's not the vibe. But the verse was so sick, and the initial idea, I was like, it's worth spending a day.
So what I like to do when I go to your guys' house is I come around with a wheat bag.
Yep.
Now I have a stash at your house, and I have a little stash at your house actually. and I probably got super high at your house.
Yep.
And probably forced you to smoke weed with me.
Yep.
And then we wrote the rest of that song.
Yeah.
And then we came together and
Well, when I
recorded.
heard, yeah, and then I was like, wait, now my turn to be picky about
Further edits.
Yeah.
Further edits were made by Ryan Linville.
Yep.
Lyrical edits for the most part, right?
Only lyrics.
Yeah.
Well, because I was like, the structure of the end of it needs to be like, what's the song we sing on Passover? Remember?
Chagaria.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's actually what the whole song is predicated. That whole chorus is predicated on.
Right.
The Jewish chorus where it ends, like,
Jewish
adds
song.
more each time. And there's
Yes.
there's also a traditional Irish song that does that too. The rap.
Right, yeah.
Can you actually give us a little
That was
bit of that,
performed
actually?
by
I don't
Hannah
remember.
Crowley.
No.
I don't know if we had our Irish friend Hannah Crowley, we could, but no, Hannah. It's like where each repeat, it's like adds another thing to it, and then you go. So I was like, it's a very like folk song kind of thing, you know. And so
Right, so I remember we were talking about that too, and it was like, we're like, when was the last time somebody did that?
Yeah.
I still don't know.
thousands
I was
of
like,
years ago.
I was like, I've heard that in a long time.
And Ryan, I remember Ryan coming. Me and Noah had kind of like shot from the hip really hard on those lyrics, and I remember you coming in and kind of like,
I was like, this is not what the song's about.
yeah, you were saying like, I think it's about this a little bit more, and then we leaned into that narrative, and I remember it all clicking. So I thought that was a really cool collaborative effort.
Yeah, that one's fun.
Yeah. How did we do that?
Well,
You guys started.
yeah,
that.
like it. I mean,
Yeah.
I remember that one pretty vividly.
Yeah,
Like,
Ryan, why
Yeah,
not
I mean,
take
well,
off?
first,
Yeah.
I would say that's actually my favorite song I've ever co-written.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's lyrically, melodically, all of the above. Quarterly.
Quarterly.
Yeah. Yeah, sick chords.
Yeah, I feel like, yeah, that's my favorite one.
Okay. Honestly, Sam, I think we
Yeah.
did a really good song. On that.
We did a really good song. I feel like it just came about because we were just like, I think we were just jamming on basically like a chordal melodic thing.
I think that was the last song for the album too, right?
It was the
like,
final
let's
one.
try
We
to
need
get one more song.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
we really got one more, which was great because sometimes that can be the hardest
Yeah.
part.
Mhm.
But you were just reading off titles because I think we were like jamming on maybe like quarterly and like melodically like the start of it.
I remember being interested in up tempo 6/8.
in three, like
Yeah.
like four on the floor,
Four on the
three
floor,
on the floor,
3 on the
Yeah.
floor, but bum 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 bum, and I thought it was an interesting approach
Instead of doing a waltz.
a waltz.
Yeah.
Yes.
Mhm. But I remember you were just reading off titles from your, big old bag of titles on,
Yeah.
on your notes.
Which is often how we work.
Yeah, it's because, and then it's almost like I've always heard it's like a Rorschach ink blot. Like, okay,
Yeah.
what does this title mean to you? And then
Yeah.
and you said Wimbledon White, and I can't remember what you had said, but instantly I was like, oh, what if that's a wedding dress?
Yeah.
And then we were
Which
like,
I was initially pretty grossed out by.
you were kind of grossed out about it, and then we were playing around with like, is it like a story of someone getting married? Is it like a fake story of like some old timey wedding thing? And then I was like, dude, I think both of them were just like, it should just be actually about you,
Yeah.
actually about you getting
And
married.
how I didn't want to get married.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so we were like, well, that's a funny take on a wedding song.
Yeah.
Is the one where you
An
don't want to
endearing
get
wedding song about not wanting to get married.
Yeah, the crucial keystone of the writing that though was when we changed the chorus lyrics.
Right. I can't remember. I heard
You-
it. I
you
can't
helped
remember what it
push
was
us to
before, but yeah.
It
I think it was like
we-
slightly less
it
endearing,
was-
and I was like,
you know that we'd stay at home if I had it my way, which was like vague.
right. I was like, this sounds a little bit too much like you actually don't want to do it. But I'm
Yeah.
like, you actually did want to do it. You just didn't want to do it in like the big sense of
Yes.
the party way.
Yes.
Which, by the way, another example of hours and hours spent on
Right. Yeah.
one
We
line
did
of a
spend
song.
quite
I mean,
a
that
lot
was
on
like
that.
just a couple little pieces that were so crucial though.
Yeah, but I remember there was somebody shot like an intern
Right, yeah,
kid.
yeah.
Like, who's that kid that you brought to the studio that day?
Right. Some like Berkeley kid or something, right?
Yeah.
Who came
Oh,
to like
Josh. Yeah.
Yes, we
Sweet
check
guy.
out the vibe. Yeah.
we brought a kid in and he was gonna like see his first like big Hollywood co-write. And it was like literally just like three like white dudes sitting around an acoustic guitar trying to come up with one line for
One
a chorus.
fucking line.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah, for like 2 hours.
and I was like, hey man, yeah, this is pretty fucking realistic.
Yeah.
We want to
guy
leave here and do
doing
this.
music.
He was actually really stoked about that.
Yeah,
Really?
He was
Okay, that makes me happy.
He was like overly like appreciative. Like, he was like, man, that was so great. And I was like, yeah, dude, I hope that wasn't excruciating, but also like if it was, now you know like what you're. But no, he was like, that was awesome.
I'm happy that hit for him because honestly, that's what I love doing is sitting in a room with you guys and like, it's so fun because I know we'll always get there. There's never 1 second where I doubt we won't get there, and it's fun to like just fuck it out in the room with you guys. It's
Yeah.
great. But yeah, Noah, I think you had kind of been like, it needs to be a bit more clear what we're saying.
Yeah, yeah.
It hit in a certain way, and we cracked the code together.
That was crucial.
And then Noah played this gorgeous trumpet
Oh yeah, the
solo.
trumpet solo. Yeah, yeah, that was sick.
Conrad.
I mean, I think like in terms of influences, like I think there's a couple artists I think both like I would always kind of have it was never like that direct of a reference, but it was like more like standards of excellence.
Yes.
If that makes sense, where it's like we want to feel as good as this thing. That's like our favorite thing.
Yes.
And I feel like the first one that comes to mind for me is Dr. Dog. As
I think Dr.
like
Dog
a standard of excellence,
certainly a standard.
where it's equal parts like rough and like kind of janky, but also so musical and like has so much quality in it. Even if it's like super rough around the edges, it's not just like shitty,
It's
like,
rich. It's musically rich.
Very rich, but also like, I don't know. Who else is in the back of your mind?
I don't know, man. I think I think it's interesting because now that we're like 6 months outside of this album, I'm starting to hear certain influences that maybe are a little bit there. But I think in the moment, what I really appreciated was, for the most part, we weren't referencing stuff.
Right, I
At least
think
not direct.
in my
Not
head it
direct.
was even almost more like when I heard Problem Solver, which was probably the first one that was like done. Like I was like, oh yeah, this is what Danny's music should sound like. It's like all like there's like not really any reverb on anything. It's like a lot of stuff recorded further away from the
Started
microphone.
getting roomy with stuff.
And it was like I was like, yeah, this. So in my head that was like almost the reference. I feel like.
So it was almost like we
sonically,
were
I was
like
like-
referencing ourselves almost.
Yeah, I was like, oh, that's the vibe. Let's just like make things sound like that, or then different versions of it, obviously. But
I
like,
think references. I mean, this is another tangent, but I think references are a very dangerous thing in
Yeah.
general. To me,
Yes.
I'm very cautious about what I allow myself to reference.
yeah.
Just because anything that is referential to me, or anytime I get in the headspace of referencing something, I feel like I'm chasing. And the second I start chasing something, I lose perspective on the whole entire holistic approach to the song.
Yeah,
and I start
absolutely.
chasing a specific tone versus what it is I like about that song that makes me feel good.
Yep.
So I think
That's
we generally
crucial.
try to stay away from references.
Yeah, I think there were not a lot, especially there were sometimes like when we were first coming up with the vibe of a song, there was like maybe inspiration points.
Yeah.
Like I feel like there was for like Wilton White, I've been listening a lot to the Beatles song For No One.
Yes.
Which does, I mean, the chords are very different, but like in terms of the structure of the
Moves.
harmony
Having
and like
moves.
how it like,
Yeah.
it's very like linear and like, but also has some like out of key chords that also flow. I was like, that was like an inspiration point, but none of it's the
And then I feel like the dodos. I had that's where I heard that. But yeah, Dr. Dog, I would say maybe is like the only rep. Like,
But even still, we were never pulling
you're
up
never
those.
pulling up songs. I think
Yeah.
it's like
Yeah.
it's also fun sometimes to reference something without listening to it. It's
Yeah,
really
yeah,
important
it's
not to
better, I
listen
think.
to it.
Yeah, that way. Where so you're just referencing your vague memory of what it sounds like versus like actually listening to it back to back with your song.
Because once you listen to it, it like breaks kind of like
Yeah.
the
And obviously, then you're like also listening to like a done amazing thing that you love, like versus like this thing you're in the middle of.
Yeah.
Like,
so
oh,
it's
mine
never gonna
sucks.
sound this guy. It's like
Yeah.
it's just gonna be like, oh fuck, this mine's not good.
The thing with references, the way that I've been kind of like thinking about it recently is like okay, so if like every song that exists is like a destination, including your song that you're currently making, like if you pull up a reference as like, oh, this is how I'm going to get to my destination, like you're only going to end up at a different destination. It's never the same roadmap.
Yeah.
You know, so like you could try to copy every move from a reference, but you'll still feel kind of lost. I feel like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, it's
Because
just taking songs
where
fast
you're-
to a different
it's not
destination.
where you're trying to go anyway.
It's
Yeah,
not
yeah.
ultimately, even if
Yeah.
it's similar place, it's
Yeah.
like no, they're two different places, and
That's really
you
interesting.
you have to figure out what that roadmap is yourself, kind of.
Yeah.
One song I realized actually we haven't mentioned once yet is Nosebleeds.
I subscribe to the different strokes for different folks philosophy, and I am a different folk in that scenario. It depends what I'm feeling. It depends what the concept is. It's very much so what's circumstantial. That being said, I often find that my best writing happens when I'm not starting from a place of feeling necessarily and from a place of fact. And almost allowing myself to tell a story that happened to me, fill in whatever, like zhuzh up some details if you need to, get it there. But oftentimes it's almost like you're writing exactly what happens, and because I'm Danny and I speak in a specific way, a writing tone starts happening, and then I've described it before as like a misty cloud that starts rising up from the bottom, which is the emotional arc, or the emotional root of the song, I should say. And that kind of presents itself as you're writing. and that can happen line one, that can happen at the end of the song, that can happen in the middle, but oftentimes because you don't want to just tell a story that's for the sake of telling a story that's boring. I've written plenty of songs that don't make it where it's just a fucking story. But if I can pinpoint the emotional sentiment while telling a story, oftentimes that's where that specific lyricism comes out, and maybe it's so specific that it becomes a relatable emotion that presents itself. So I would say that's how I think about those types of songs for the most part.
That was a journey.
That's a fucking drink.
Making Nosebleeds was a journey.
That's another like kind of drink on Accutane kind of thing, because
Yeah.
I was still kind of trying to be cool guy.
You were still wrestling with your personal identity, I feel like, in a way.
I was probably like 26, 27.
Mm-hmm.
I was just starting to get over myself a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And we probably made
3 different versions, right?
3,
like fully different versions.
maybe like 6 or 7 attempts though.
Yeah, there was. Well, it started with like I can't remember what the. Oh well, because I think you're the thing I remember you saying is like I don't want this to be a foreign acoustic guitar song, and I was always like.
A classic statement from Danny.
I know. It can't be another dude with an acoustic guitar singing a fucking song.
Yeah.
Which it's funny because in the lyrics it literally that insecurity is spoken about.
I'm talking about that. Yes.
And so we tried doing an Afrobeat version.
Keep talking. I'm getting
Whoa.
it.
Have you heard
I don't think I've heard that.
Wild. Yeah, it was like on some like Paul Simon Vampire Weekend. You know,
like the worst version.
It wasn't that cool.
Yeah.
But we gave it a solid try. And then there was actually, I feel like the moment that clicked with that one is we did another version where it was like a lot slower than where it ended up. And it was just kind of like very like drudging and kind of, and because it was actually you playing it live that started to make, because I was always like a little bit skeptical about that song, but then I saw a video of you playing it live and I was like, oh, I feel like I get the feeling now. Because it was you just had a guitar, so you just had
Actually,
It simply was just a white guy with an
It was
acoustic
simply
guitar.
was just a way. It was Will Guild. Shout out to Will Guild, who played. It was when I was opening for Amos Sleeve.
Oh,
And
nice.
cool. I had initially played it, and then Will, just because he's Will, started swinging it a little bit more, and I did the trot, did the dun 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 dun.
That was huge.
And that kind of I think was shout out to Will, by the way.
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah,
Amazing musician.
but yeah, you're right. That's when it kind of unlocked, right?
At least that's when I got it. Yeah, and then I feel like then once we got together in the studio, then I was like, okay, I think it's a little more clear. But in terms of sonically, I think this also set the tone for like, I can't remember if we did that before or after Problem Solver. It was like similar time, but at the very end of the song, we were just like, we were still on a version that ended up not being the final version. We recorded a ton of backup vocals where you like the mic was in one place and you just went all over my studio.
Yeah.
And like super roomy, distant vocals. We were kind of like shouting and like it was all kind of rough.
It was almost
because
like,
we were like losing our minds. We were like, what the fuck do we do? All right, let's just try a bunch of shit. And then we were like, oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
And then we deleted everything from that version again, except for the vocals at the end.
Yeah.
And then started over. We're like, okay, well, I guess our starting point on the production is background vocals in the third chorus, which is like an insane way to start on the song, but it kind of got us in the right direction.
Yeah, we got there for sure. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mozart in My Mind is a song. How did that happen? I had the chord progression initially, which was like kind of based on like the circle of fifths.
Yeah,
for the most part, for all my music nerds out there, it was like following this. Can you crash course on the circle of fifths, one of you nerds?
It's just like fifths going up and up and up.
If you follow it, inevitably it comes back around.
Yeah, but you didn't go all the way.
Not all the way.
You're like halfway,
I go halfway, then I break
half
off.
down out.
Yeah. Thank you, Noah.
Yeah.
And I had that chord progression. I had a writing day with Sean Kennedy, bless his soul.
Mm-hmm.
He's probably like, we're gonna write like a really like, real song. And I came up with that bullshit on that chord progression that's just like the most wacky stuff ever. And then honestly, like, I think their song, what's cool is like, how do I put this? I don't think you're limited to one style of songwriting as an artist. I think that what makes it interesting or an album interesting is like hearing different perspectives of your songwriting or different approaches. Mm-hmm. And for that, I was just like, I'm going to talk my shit in like the most 90s, like kind of what I grew up on. I just wanted to kind of say weird sentences, and not for sport, but more so like I had fun. Right? I had this feeling of like a character at a party, which I had been this character before, being too high, having to have a real conversation with someone when you're extremely high, and them like confessing like how unhappy they are in a scenario, and you being like, I'm legitimately not capable of having this conversation right now because I'm so inebriated. And I would say that combined with me kind of having fun with words is what got to Mozart. And then I brought it to Noah, who, in typical Noah Conrad fashion, kind of like trimmed the fat pretty hard on it.
Right, yeah, because the form was really different. Yeah.
The form was really different.
Wait, really? What was it?
I think it went to the outro section like after the first.
It hit the
verse
outro 3
also.
times.
Yeah, it was like, and so it was like just like set like it was. I was just like,
Really
what is
gratuitous.
happening? And then I was like, oh, maybe this section is just the outro, and then like the rest of it makes sense in that way. Yeah.
Oh, good call. Wow,
And then-
I didn't know that.
Beautiful drum playing by you
Oh,
also.
thank you.
Yeah, Noah really played some beautiful drums.
I've gotten a lot better at drums since then, but I feel like that was one of my earlier passable drum performances.
Great drum performance. Yeah, and then we got that. Honestly, that song was pretty easy to record once we figured it out.
Yeah,
I feel like
yeah.
It was
We
like
kinda
flourishing
just, like,
days.
jammed it out.
Yeah.
I remember you sent me the voice memo from the demo, or the demo.
Oh, and you
And
were
I was like,
you
I
were
don't really
like,
fuck with this.
Yeah. Ryan was like, this is whack. I was like,
You know what's fun?
No, but I listened and I heard you guys, I was like, oh, this is sick.
You know what's fun?
I just
also?
didn't get it.
Sometimes I like positioning you guys against each other. Where if I tell Noah that Ryan didn't fuck with the song, I know maybe Noah's a little bit more like motivated to like crack it.
Unless he just also doesn't like
Unless,
it.
That's obviously if you don't like it, you would
Yeah.
like it. But that was one of those where I think you were like, yeah, I got
I was
this.
like, this is weird. Let's see.
No, but then I heard, I was like, oh, I get it.
Yeah, and then I was like,
That's
right.
great.
that
Yeah.
was a particularly weird, funky one to do.
Yeah.
Which led to Chinchilla story.
Right, exactly.
That was
Huge. That should have happened if I had
Yeah. I was thinking about Mozart because
Wolfgang
I
Amadeus.
had actually come to you, Noah, I think maybe 2
Right,
years
I remember
prior,
that actually, yeah.
And I have a dog named Mozart, obviously.
Yeah.
Mozart the Bulldog.
Yeah.
And I said,
It's
I
not
would
allowed in
love
my
to
house.
write a Berkeley. I think my language was, I would to write a Berkeley-ass song where I talk about Mozart or I
Yeah.
reference some type of Mozart.
No, I think originally the idea was to make an instrumental song,
Yes. Where
Yeah,
it's like,
called Mozart.
Yeah.
Dog, right?
which
Yeah.
we still have yet to do. We could that's maybe the next
Yeah,
album.
anything's
yeah.
possible. But yeah, I would say that's where that initial thing came.
Yeah.
What's next? I think I'm really enjoying singing these songs live right now. I'm touring. Great. It's wonderful to see it connect with other people. Simultaneously, I'm trying to just basically do what we did before, just mimic the exact same thing in the sense where I'm not going to like book you guys for 3 weeks and say, now we have to write an album in 3 weeks. Chipping away, slowly, intention, precision, fucking up, liking it, hating it. That whole dance, I think, is super important and letting things breathe. So we are writing, honestly, we've got already a bunch of ideas that I love. And it's going to be really exciting to see how they progress. But I think no one else is good. I mean, it's going to be us that are making the thing ultimately. So it's like, whenever it comes together, it will come together.
Time for us to just write a bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
Keep taking swings. at
Keep taking
bats.
swings.
Yeah.
ABs.
There's gonna be a lot of misses. We've already got some misses under our belt, but I feel like it just gets us, we're just getting closer to the good
It's
ones.
part of the thing. It's
Yeah.
part of the thing. But yeah, I would say that's where we're at.
The same thing, better,
Gooder.
Gooder.
even gooder.
Even
Yeah,
gooder.
even
Yep.
Even gooder. Even gooder.
Who was on the album that we had? Josh Bach played horns on Wiener Schnitzel.
Shout out to Josh Bach for
Josh Bach played French horn and flugelhorn on Wiener Schnitzel, which was really crucial to that song being both funny and serious and a tearjerker as well.
Yeah. He cried the first time you heard
He
it.
cried the first time he heard it, and you were like, "This is what I'm all about: is making people cry with the hot dog song."
Yeah. Shout out to, honestly, I'd like to take a moment to say Brian Brundage.
Yes.
Who, like, honestly, he didn't produce the album, but from a writing standpoint, I could have done a whole sit down with him about this.
Absolutely.
Because he is such a massive inspiration and part of my writing process. I wrote probably like half the songs with him. So shout out to Brian Brundage, who is easily my favorite songwriter of all time.
Yeah, he's the fucking man. Such a
Yeah.
quiet beast.
Quiet.
Or he's
Quiet
subtle,
beast.
but he's just
New
lethal.
Jersey's finest.
Yeah.
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 Yes. Shout out Pedro Clooney for mixing me.
Oh
You
my
think
God.
of it? Maybe anyone who like might have mixed anything about
Let's
this?
talk about Pedro for a second.
Yeah.
Who is
Pedro is an essential
who
part of
is
this operation.
a pillar of the Slave Dad
Yeah.
project. And he wears many hats. He sometimes is a mixer. He sometimes is
A banjist?
A banjist. He sometimes is a photographer,
Yep.
Drummer.
Chef.
chef,
Mix engineer.
mix engineer. Yeah.
And he's he mixed wieners and he mixed problem solver.
And
he mastered problem solver.
And he mastered problem solver, and he mixed and mastered all the live from Mom's Office stuff.
Yeah.
So
Oh, yeah.
shout out to
Pretty
Pedro.
cool.
Pedro, come here.
He went back to the house to get more food.
Good. Good. I support that. Yeah.
Ryan eats a lot of food.
Yeah, he does eat a lot of food. Okay, wonderful. Thank you guys.
Hey,
love
welcome.
you. Love
Yeah.
you.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers.
Dinner.
Second dinner, baby.
Yeah.
Bada boom.
Did it.